Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a homeowner association which I'm not a part of sent illegal HOA officers to my house to raid my property. They destroyed my belongings and I decided to sue them. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This story might be a little bit different if only for the fact it takes place over the course of 6 years. So many times I wanted to tell this story but couldn't due to it being a bad idea legally. Now that everything is over, I can finally take my place in a community of people that have went up against and beaten an HOA. Despite the story starting 6 years ago, I have to rewind a little bit further back than that to when the HOA first got established. I was living in a neighborhood without one for many years before one HOA started to crop up. The way that it was going to work was that if somebody was already living there before the HOA, they would have the choice to join in or not. New people moving in though would not have a choice and the HOA would be mandatory. Now, jumping to 6 years ago, I was one of the only houses still not part of the HOA. Either people wanted to be in it or moved away and new residents got forced into it. I was constantly being sent letters asking to join the HOA that I would consider junk mail and throw it right into the trash. I wanted no part of it and instead felt like I would be better off just staying out of the entire thing. The HOA though was persistent and really wanted me along with the other stray people that did not belong to join in. That was when the HOA created a group within themselves of officers, and I used that term very loosely. It was just members of the HOA that were on a power trip and felt like they really were the law when they had no right to do anything. They started showing up to my house all the time, demanding that I pay my HOA fees even though I'm not a member. It went from annoying to problematic when they started raiding my property and causing actual destruction. I am guessing their ploy was to make me want protection and join the HOA, almost like stores in certain cities pay a gang and then they won't rob that store. The bottom line is, it was illegal and I was getting both sick of and slightly scared of these fake officers. They had ripped up my lawn, broken windows and rang my doorbell to keep me awake in the middle of the night. I had tried calling the police on them, but they would always get away and play it off as they were just keeping the area safe and did not see anything since my house was not on their list. I finally had enough and decided to get a lawyer involved and sue the HOA for the tactics they were using. It was simple destruction of property and harassment, and the first thing my lawyer told me was to get a video camera installed. The harassment continued even after my lawyer put the motion in place to start a lawsuit against the HOA. There were a ton of issues that caused this case to go on for 6 years despite how simple it seemed to be on paper. It became a debate of whether I can sue the HOA since I don't belong to it, or would I have to drop that suit and start all over suing the individual people. The thing is, the HOA would just get new officers to continue harassing me if I did that. And then the pandemic hit and all non-emergent legal things ended up getting paused and pushed back over and over again. All the while my house was still being targeted and the officers were still coming to my door and demanding that I pay HOA fees. Else they would find another way to get the money out of me. And Ripe stars, I gotta say, this sounds more and more like a mafia rather than an HOA. Anyway, I had no idea what kind of crazy gangster movie I found myself living in, but I wanted to change the channel. Finally, things started to get back to normal and I was able to continue my lawsuit against the HOA. They did not know that I had installed a camera and had proof that it was them doing all of these things to me. Out of everything that got recorded, I wish that I could have gotten their faces in court when they saw my videos. They even had jackets that clearly stated HOA officer on them, so there was no way they could wiggle their way out of it. I also had stacks of mail telling me that I had to pay my dues and the normal stuff they tend to do to people. They were really hanging onto anything they could and tried to get out of this, including the argument that since I did not have their consent to record them, the videos should be thrown out of the case. They did not have permission to be on my property though, and the law when it came to personal property recording was on my side. They were found guilty of harassment, but that was not the main thing I wanted to sue these people over for. They had destroyed so much of my property over the years that it got to a point that I did not bother replacing things like flowers or outdoor lights because I knew they would just get ruined within a couple of days. Luckily they stopped breaking windows, but even then they had done horrible damage to my property. They stopped trying to really argue because at that point they knew they had lost and needed to just try and get away without getting into more trouble. Now it is 6 years after the entire thing started and the final court decision finally came out. They were going to have to pay me $200,000 for all the damage and harassment they had caused me. If they tried to get involved in my life ever again, even sending me mail asking me to join, they were going to get fined even more. They also had a separate investigation start happening regarding their officers and how having them might actually be going against the laws regarding what and what not HOAs are allowed to do in my area. I know I should be happy about the money and everything, but honestly, I'm just exhausted. It was a 6-year battle with these people, and at the end of the day, I just feel more wiped out than anything else. I do hope that the officer program they have gets shut down. Part of me wished that this would result in the HOA going away or something really nice, but I had no luck in that department. A few other people have come forward saying that they only joined the HOA because of the harassment and were hiring lawyers to fight now and try and get out of it. I don't know what will come of that, but it is not something I will follow that closely. The closing message to everybody fighting the HOA is that it can take a long time, but you should not just give up because of that. If you're in the right, then you will be found that way and should not let them bully you because they are bigger and have more money. You have rights regarding the HOA, and even if you are not a part of it, and should always express those rights. I know that some HOAs are good and really do help people, but until that is the majority, instead of the exception to the rule, maybe we should all try and come up with a better system when it comes to running a community. And yeah, my lovely viewers, I know that some of you live in HOA communities, and I'm curious if you ever had any positive experiences with an HOA. Let us know in the comments, I'm really curious. Either way, the next one is titled The Worst Company Ever. I think every self-respecting and honest person would have their own standards for work, free time and salary for jobs to be done or for work to keep going. This is the reason I love my own job, because the company I work for always respects my standards and provides me with good grounds to get the job done. And on rare occasions, things that were limiting me were deadlines, and it is not that strict or stupid deadlines that you probably think of, but mostly loose deadlines that I cannot even call a deadline, some sort of relative date that when job could be ready for first revision, and then we will see how it is going to end up. But what had been happening to my sister's company was a disaster. So the background, there was a logistics company that was one of the leading companies in our country in terms of logistics, and that was a mammoth of a company stretching from regular box delivery to heavy loaded trains with assets and chemicals and lots of containers and stuff. They had even heavy machinery rental branches, and all of this was controlled from one office, so you can imagine the atmosphere. My sister was mostly responsible for trucks and their invoices and stuff like border crossings and transfers. She started when the company was at its peak, and by her words, the staff was professionals and good people that knew what they were doing and had passion to cooperate and teach her. The team was super cool and she liked it. As you know, good workflow means also good income for the company owners and good reputation for the managers. And also overall good people together gave my sister necessary experience, and she became one of their best agents. Fast forward 4 years and she had become the one-man machine of logistics. Hell, she became someone I have never expected. Millions of calls every day at any time, hundreds of mails from everywhere, all CEOs of other companies calling her to solve their transportation issues. Company made her a senior logistics agent and fully responsible of all road logistics. Everything you can imagine that can be transported by road, she had under control. One time I asked her if all this bothers her when they are calling and writing all day long, on her free time, on vacations and at night. She just waved to me and said that it's okay and she likes it. Okay, the collapse. So what could possibly go wrong in this type of company that controlled most of the logistics? COVID struck logistics really hard. Small logistics companies died instantly and bigger companies started an all-out war for everything that was available. Everything that can be transported during quarantines and lockdowns was under control of these companies. All staff members were sent to their homes and organized so-called home offices. The company of my sister was doing everything relatively well, but due to border lockdowns, international logistics were struggling and some people got fired because of that. Overall, the company was making income, but not as much as it was before. Mostly, they were occupied with construction companies and chemical factories. Small pays and less income were during the whole of COVID. Everything had to come to normal after COVID ended, and sister was looking forward to returning to her office filled with colleagues and fast-paced logistics action. And she hoped that everything that the company went through will be now regained. Oh damn, she was thinking too optimistically about that. Now I need to introduce you to several people that will play crucial roles in turning every optimism of my sister into ash. The owner and the HR manager as an HR, a little bit of side info. So in our family there's a rule: every child of my father's parents, my grandma and grandma, always must bring all their children and grandchildren to dinner every day to parents' home and have dinner, and after that some tea or coffee with a chat about work, family issues and all sorts of things that can be interesting. This is perfect because of several reasons. While I was young, my parents were working. At the time I finished my classes in school, so there was only two places I could go to our family home or to my grandparents, and yes, I was also always going to my grandparents because of the meal that was waiting for me that was prepared by my granny, and you know how it is to be a grandchild. And all my other relatives, little brothers and sisters and cousins, were coming to that same place, and we were all together until our parents finished their job, had dinner in grandparents' home and then went home. And we were always with our grandparents in case they needed anything, so our parents could do their jobs without worrying about us or about their parents. On one of this type of family dinners, my sister had told us that her company had made a lot of changes to maintain an old pace and regain all that they have lost during the pandemic. First of all, HR announced that they have difficult decisions to make. Either they must fire, again, several people from the team, mainly assistant type, or to decrease salaries of all for a while to keep the team together, because the company struggles to keep up with salaries because of decreasing income. So then the team decided to keep the team together, as it was told that all this salary cut-off was temporary. Then, after several months on a same family dinner, sister said that her company started little by little firing people from work with various stupid and incompetent reasons. And I also need to admit that they were firing them by their own will because of threats that HR have told them, something like, "If you don't write letter to fire you by your own will, you will never find any logistics agency that will accept you." Or, "You are no longer needed anymore, you go by your own decision, or I will put a big mark on your future career if there's going to be any," and so on. So several of my sister's friends also got fired, and they have revealed several information that was main reason of those stupid decisions that were made by the company, so here they are. One of the fired friends of my sister was an assistant accountant, and she stated that due to previous firings from international logistics departments, the company did not have competent staff to regain the opened gap in service and lost control on that field. The company tried to regain those stands, bulking up responsibilities to already heavily loaded members of other departments, which went totally wrong, and they struggled to keep up. Also, she said that the owner started to cut a big chunk of income for himself, stating that COVID had ended and he will take what is his as it was before. Even if the company had not returned to the same income level as it was on a pre-COVID period, another friend of the sister was an assistant of that HR, and she said that daughter of that HR was working on this company as an agent, and she was always immune to all salary decreases and several other cutoffs that company had implemented to all staff members. Both were sure that this won't be the end of this stupidity that was going on, and they have warned my sister to be prepared for more work to come due to lack of staff members and to salary decreases because of heavy loads with strict deadlines that will backlash with back charges. And you don't need to be prophets to understand that all those predictions happened in matter of weeks. Lo and behold, HR with an announcement that we are having a tough decision to make, with the same conditions, either team or the salary. Among all this new stupidity that everyone takes their vacations now in December, all of staff members were contractors for a year, and they signed annually this contract, and they could take vacations during the year, or they would be paid if they did not use those 3 days at the end of the year, with a little curveball: home office during vacation. At one moment, sister realized that she is 30% short from her original salary for over 6 months. She is now responsible not only for road logistics, but also for heavy machinery rental, train communications, container shipments, and small deliveries. Her phone was ringing like a non-stop DJ on drugs 24/7. Mails were so much that to read them all, you would need a population of a whole country. Documents, invoices, all this paperwork already became a huge pile of garbage, and she still believed that everything would go back to normal and she would have the same team all together again when the stress period would finish. However, it never finished. The last drop of that all was when daughter of an HR became a manager of my sister. She was the whole time sure that this position would be hers because her last manager was a good guy who promised that he would recommend her when he will finally be promoted. But that promotion did not come because the manager resigned and left the company. By the words of my sister, her now ex-manager could not keep up with all the stress and anxiety, and he was bombarded with back charges and reports due to lack of quality service that accumulated because of of lack of staff members, plus of overall atmosphere of office after too many lies from the company and HR. The revenge at one of our family dinners, my father said to the sister that she must prepare everything to leave that job. Father told her to send out CVs to several companies that were swimming in the same pool, to back up all documents, prepare all needed letters to sign off from the current work, and keep all contacts with your previous customers, and she did exactly as was advertised. Back up all needed documents, emails, contracts, make an archive, and copy to home PC. Deleting those mails was violation of current contract, so she left that on office PC with words, "All those mails just nothing if 90% of your job is via phone calls." And then came the realization that this whole time for over 6+ years, every possible customer was calling to my sister's personal number because that scumbag owner could not provide her with a company smartphone and cell number. Cherry on top, if you remember that CVs that were sent, one of them dropped to hands of my sister's friend's HR assistant that now had a new job in a new logistics company that had most of those fired colleagues and was flourishing and retaking all angry customers that were left from this old bleeding behemoth. My sister instantly caught that opportunity and had qualified to position of manager of land logistics in a brand new company with most of her old friends and colleagues. She resigned from the old company before they could send her to vacation. It means that salary must be raised to pay those vacation days that were never taken. All customers, and I mean all, from trains, trucks, rentals, ships, planes, every possible customer that had ever contacted my sister was still contacting her via her personal number, and now were transferred to her new company with better conditions with the best results. Viewing all those customers that my sister brought to this company, she instantly had love for the new company direction, win-win situation for all, for her friend that she brought good assets to the company, for the company that is now fully loaded with work and customers, and for my sister with the new workplace, with all new gadgets and stuff, and now with the salary quadrupled from that original. Yes, from her original salary she was making in the old company. Old company HR contacted her several times when they realized that nobody was calling them and queuing up for orders. Even if they were struggling with less jobs and close to zero income, they could not lower their greed down and proudly told my sister that they would accept her back with a new salary, still less than her original, and new benefits. But my sister declined and ignored them until that company became just a memory in my sister's work experience. And here, ripe stars, if you have any bad experiences or interesting experiences with awful bosses or awful coworkers, then please feel free to share them in the comments. Either way, I hope you enjoyed today's video and I will see you again tomorrow.